Welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast. My name is Ian Ray, your host. Today, I have Shabnam Ahmed, based out of Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. She is the founder of Rafferty's Shoes, kids' barefoot shoes. Shabnam, welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we've been corresponding for, it seems like months, just when we
Yeah.
first started. And I loved seeing the progression and the growth of obviously from when we first conversed, and then of course now that we have your shoes. Kind of tell us who you are, how did you get into the barefoot shoe space, and then like what's the name behind Rafferty shoes?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so maybe I'll just start with the name behind Rafferty shoes because that's an easy one. So my younger son's name is Raffy, spelled as Rafe, which is the first part of Rafferty shoes. And the term Rafferty's is actually Australian slang. It's called as Rafferty's rules. And if you were to use it in a sentence, you would say something like playing by Rafferty's rules, which essentially means there's no rules. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the idea behind the kids' footwear. It was about raising kids who are free, wild, and, without any rules. And definitely not the kind of restrictive ones that we usually put on them and call them shoes. So that was the idea behind the name.
And then as far as like how did you get into barefoot shoes yourself, and then of course like this whole like, when did this come about? As far as when did you start creating Rafferty shoes?
Yeah. So I started creating Rafferty shoes early in 2025. I was on my maternity break at the time. And as all parents, or I think as all moms do on maternity breaks, they're always looking for kids' products online. They're always like trying to see what's the next best thing that they can buy their kids. And when my son started walking, naturally, I started progressing into like looking into more shoes. And, everything that I found in the market, at least in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
was almost everything, not everything, almost everything was either too chunky, too stiff. It just felt wrong, it just felt plasticky. And my younger one especially, he's a bit of a rebel. Like he would just remove shoes and chuck them and have like he would not have it. And so I started looking at what can I do? Maybe something's wrong with the shoes that I'm putting on him. And then I started looking online and I saw that there was shoes that were made like feet. And it was like the most obvious thing. It hits you out of nowhere. You're like, wait, what? That makes so much sense. And then around the same time, I was also like going through my own sort of health and fitness struggles with my own sort of posture and foot issues. A little bit background about myself. I was a makeup artist for 8 years. And I was standing for long periods of time in like really these thick, heavy footwear, just like bad posture and everything. So I was like seeing the chiro and physio for like a couple of months before that. And then along that journey, I was like, I came about barefoot shoes and I was like, oh, this seems so like obvious, but I just never thought about it that way. And then the dots kind of connected in my head. I'm like, oh, maybe what I'm going through in my life in my 30s now is because of what damage has been done to my body like much earlier on, especially my feet. They're just not strong enough to take that load anymore, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm these pains and these struggles. And so I was like, definitely we can do better for our kids. Like we have to do better for our kids. And that's when I decided that I'm going to start my own shoe brand. Long story short. So I'm not from a design background. I don't have experience in the footwear industry. So the first thing that I did was I hired a shoe designer who's got about 15 years of experience in the footwear industry. I am a very artistic person given my background and everything. So a lot of the design elements that you see are like my own, if you will, they're like things that I kind of envision. But the technicalities and the design, like everything, like even like the tech pack, the shoe was completely designed by scratch from my designer. And so that's how Rafferty started. And it's been in making for like about, I would say, 8 to 9 months.
Did you envision yourself being a founder of a brand and apparel company at all?
No, no. That's so funny because if I was ever a founder, I would have probably founded something like skincare or, something like it's so it's so different from what I envisioned myself from doing. But sometimes, life chooses for you. I did not decide or I did not pick this path. It just somehow came upon me and I felt very compelled by it. Like it's like when you see something, you can't unsee it. And when I saw the most obvious gaping hole in the footwear industry and how we're forcing our kids into this really restrictive footwear, I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, I have to do something about this.
Yeah, there's definitely a time, I guess, when you're looking at kids' shoes, you're like, oh my gosh, I've been putting my kids in these stiff soles and, super inflexible shoes, and it's affecting them. Like, I don't know if you can attest, but I look at my kids' feet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've ruined their natural splay because it's not how it was before, and
Yeah.
so it's definitely makes you think like, okay, this is definitely a footwear choice, and maybe like those underlying muscles that they haven't used because they're put into these shoes for however many long hours during the day. And so, as a founder, as Rafferty's Shoes founders, what's your mission in creating these shoes and your purpose of having this brand?
Yep. So the mission is simple. Like we come from a more prevention first approach rather than correction. Like kids are born
Mhm.
perfect. Most
Yep.
of them are born with no issues, and that's how they are. And why do we then, put them in these restrictive, not just footwear, but even just choices that we make along the line that then they have to go in their 30s, whether it be anything to do with choices about food or about their body and footwear. And footwear is just one part of it. But why do we then restrict them in these silos or in these parts that are actually not how nature intended them to grow up? Only for them to have to go and correct it in their 30s and 50s when they have kids themselves. And then they have this realization that, oh my gosh, my mom and dad did so wrong with me. Our mission is simple: prevention first
Hmm.
rather than action, and if we just adopted that approach and allowed them to grow as nature intended, a lot of the problems that they face later on, I'm not saying that it's the solution to every, like barefoot shoes are the solution to everything, but they definitely stop them from getting weaker. If I have seen it with my own eyes, the confidence increases,
Hmm.
jump, tackling obstacles and things like that. So we're just giving them a more grounded start to life, and that is a very simple approach. And I want it to be accessible to as many families as possible. So that's the main why behind Rafferty shoes.
Talking about like, I guess when you're testing out all your different models and like prototypes, did you get feedback a lot from Rafi himself and your other son, like as far as like how they like it and like how they look and whatnot? Because I'm sure you're including them so that they can see like the process of, creation and actually having the shoes itself. So how are they involved as well?
Yeah, they're very heavily involved. Like the reason why I chose that age group to launch with was because my kids are in that age group and I could actively test every prototype with them and I could see what's working, what's not. Like even my 5-year old, like he'll give me feedback about, oh mom, it's getting too hot inside. So we changed it from to like a mesh sole, and he'll just tell me things as and when we go along. My little one, not so much. He's more obviously he's 2, so he can't really, speak much, but I can tell like he doesn't like it, he'll just chuck it and. So they definitely were very much involved from sample 1 to sample 5, which is what this is. So this is sample number 5. As and when we went along as well, I did a lot of testing. When we got our shoes, I did check for zero drop as well to see if they actually there's no heel to toe elevation, paired the toe box against like a traditional shoe as well to see how big they are, if they have enough room for natural play. And all throughout the process as well, along with my kids, my designer was fully involved in the creation of the shoe as well. Because from like a technical perspective, I didn't know a lot of the things that I was like as a founder, I had more of the business sense, but not so much the technical sense. So along with my kids, my designer was heavily involved as well in the creating of the shoe. Oh, sorry, I did also test some prototypes with some Aussie families, like basically friends of ours who were
Uh
kind
huh.
enough put their kids in the shoes as well, and then give me first-hand feedback on what it felt like.
So this was like still October. This is still in 2025 that you're doing prototypes, testing it out, correct?
Yeah.
Before it actually came in. Yeah. And as far as like your I know you're really into educating and on social media for parents. So what are some of the benefits of wearing barefoot shoes compared to your regular, Nikes, Adidas that you love to share with parents and on your platform?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it was that. So that was the other thing that I always laugh about. When I started this brand, I had no idea I had to become part-time content creator. So I was not on my cup. I was like, wow, there's so much of an education element involved because unlike a lot of the other products out there, there isn't a before and after. Look, it looks like before and now it's after. The after is only kind of seen after 30 years or after
Yeah.
15 years when they grow up strong and when they can go on a run and not have like pain or when they're just more outdoorsy. So there is a heavy education element involved, but the most obvious thing is then alignment, their posture. They have like the shoes itself have a wide toe box to grow. So as kids are growing, the little feet are growing, they have 26 muscles in their feet. They need room to grow. They need room to spread. So they're not hot. They're not squished. They're not growing they're not growing like in a pointed or a conical way. There it is, like I said, it is zero drop, meaning that there is no elevation from heel to toe. Just to like, I'm sure you know already, but just to like show the parents as well, like that's what a normal, like not a very big elevation, but it still makes a difference because it throws their balance off. That's only a 2 centimeter elevation. And so when a child is still growing and learning how to walk, when you put a wedge on their heel, it essentially throws their balance off. And the other thing that I'm really happy about is we're a 5 centimeter sole, meaning that the ground feedback that the child gets while walking is amazing. That's data continuously going from their feet to their brain. So they're learning more the more the feedback, the better they improve their balance, learning how to jump and just tackle obstacles. They just grow up more confident. So those are more obvious features, obvious benefits that you can see from barefoot shoes. But like I said, the long-term benefit is more prevention rather than correction. So it's the goal is here to allow them to grow up strong and free and healthy without any sort of future foot pains.
Yeah, I love one of the aspects I really love about your shoes. Sorry, kind of jumping forward is like these built-in growth guide and your insoles. I think that's such a wonderful thing because to me as a parent, you're always finding out like if it's too tight, if it's too long, or you don't know when it's time to size up. But this has been a very great key aspect of your shoes that you put in. Is like this. I don't know if people can see it, but basically it's a growth guide, and you can put their foot on it, right?
Yeah, so it's like a growth guide, and so they can put their foot on it, and then when they reach if they're sort of there, then it's good because they still have a bit of room to grow. But if you're like thinking that, oh, it's been like a few months, let me check. So and if they've kind of reached that mark, then you know it's time to size up. So you're not guessing, or you're not like waiting for them to complain that, hey, my foot hurts. Like you need to buy into shoes. Yeah.
Yet. I'm sure you've experienced that too. You're like, and
Yeah.
so I guess that was another question is like, was this something that you came up with as well, as far as including this
Yeah,
guide?
that came up with. Yeah. And then yeah, like so I every time I would come up with something and I would like message my designer like, hey, what about this? Can we do this? And she'll be like, oh wait, let me think about it and get back to you. But yeah, those are like AM moments that I last year has been massively chaotic because of just trying to build this thing. So I would have
Hmm.
flash of ideas and random things in my head and I would be like, hey, is this possible? Can we do this? And then yeah, so this was one of those.
Talking about I guess when you started like your prototypes and the obviously the start, because you as a founder, I mean, are you still working a 9 to 5 job still on top of doing this?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I have. So, I still have my day job,
Hmm.
4 days a week in that, and I have 2 kids, and I've just launched this brand, so it's very, very, very busy at the moment. And one of the like last year was big. Like I said, like me and my husband, we decided to put like what we had saved aside for our house deposit into building this brand, because we couldn't have realistically taken on this project with a mortgage, you know, that I had to go back to work and just had to make all these decisions, which seemed so big at the time. But now I'm glad we did it because, you know, I, it is like whatever happens, at least I won't live with the regret that, oh, maybe I should have gone ahead with that idea that I really, really, really wanted to go ahead with. So I'm glad that we're at this point, and it doesn't matter what happens, but I'm just glad we at least got here.
Yeah. Isn't that the scariest part is like taking the actual step and doing it? Like you made a huge sacrifice, you and your husband, obviously, to, building this from scratch, not knowing what to expect. Because I feel the same way when I first started my practice. Like I didn't know what I'm doing. Like I just want to, help people out. Then so you just take the action. But I guess for yourself, and maybe you can help parents kind of relate, is like, where does it's hard to find balance, especially if you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur like yourself and I. But how hard is it to have a good support system in building a brand and a company?
Oh, it's really hard. I would say that it's one of the hardest things I've done in my life. I think I put it up in my story once, which I was like,
Hmm.
this is the hardest thing I've done aside from giving birth. The second hardest thing I've done. When when an idea comes into your head, it's very exciting. You've got a lot of adrenaline. You think like that's the best idea, and you're just like pumped. But then a couple of months later, and a few hundred, like a few, not hundred, a few thousands of dollars later, you're like sitting in the middle of the night, like thinking, what was I thinking? This is so much harder than I imagined. But what I would tell parents is, if like with anything, if you're able to push through that doubt, then whatever comes after, like I've gotten so much encouragement from people because we're so new. I honestly didn't know what to expect. Like even yourself, like Ian, I don't know you that well, but like the level of support and encouragement I've received from you, I'm honestly shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know this person and he's being so kind. Has helped me like that. That is what I call community, honestly.
Hmm.
It's not just my partner and me. It's just like all of these little things that keep you going, even in the face of doubt. When there are people you don't even know trusting you and pushing you forward. I mean, that's community and that's amazing. But also, like, you really have to believe in that thing that you're creating. It can't be like jumping on a trend or the next, whatever is happening on social media. It has to be something that even if somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night to ask you about it, you should be like, oh yeah, like let's talk about it. It should be like, okay, you should be really excited to do it, even when the motivation is low, because motivation alone won't get you through.
Yeah. So I guess that question would be, what is your why? I guess I've heard of many podcasts and books, and they always talk about what's your why of starting a business, and like, because there's deeper meaning, obviously. So like, what's your why of starting Rafferty Shoes?
So obviously, but again, just going back to why
Hmm.
the approach that this brand has adopted, which is like we want and we are very, very child focused, like as a brand. And people always ask me like, are you going to like venture into adult shoes? But I haven't even thought about it because that is not my focus.
Yeah.
We are a child first, like child focused company, and the shoe itself is specifically designed for children. Like it's not made in a way where I ever thought that, oh, if you wanted to make an adult version of this, all we have to do is just make bigger sizes. It was always designed around a child's foot. So my why is really to just get it in as many little feet and as many hands of families as possible, so that we're giving them that good start. And that's why, even from like a price point, I didn't want to make it super expensive as well, only because I want families to be able to buy it without having to think that is so unaffordable. And for me personally as well, like I would love for this business to be my full-time source of income, full-time what I do, because I love it so much. Like I just realized that it's not about the business, it's about the community I'm building. And
Hmm.
me that gives me so much like excitement to just get up and do this every day. Like every DM that I receive on social media, every person that asks me, oh, I saw this brand and I didn't know it was you behind the brand. And it just makes me so happy. But also I'm me as a person, right? Like getting into this space, I was really skeptical because I'm not from Australia. My background is Indian.
Hmm.
When I started selling this brand, I was like, oh, I have to say as if it's for Aussie parents, but I'm not even from here. What if they're not able to relate? Like I had all these negative thoughts in my head. I'm like, I don't look Aussie enough, I don't sound Aussie enough, like I don't look like that. But honestly, the community has blown me away, and everyone's been so supportive and so encouraging that I'm like, yes, I want to do this for the community of parents who care about movement, who care about watching their children grow up healthy, who care about being outdoors, who care about having less screen time, more outside. It's for those parents. I myself, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I would categorize myself as in that sort of group of parents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand. Being a '90s kid, so you are used to being outside, and not having a screen right in front of you, tablets, phones. I mean, and I remember growing up. I mean, I used to be outside a lot too, more than nowadays. I hardly see any kids outside, and it's kind of sad. So it's definitely kids need to be outside and to enjoy. And I think these shoes kind of have that same theme as like you're saying. Be wild, be free, and kind of go move, be outside.
Yeah.
I guess my next question for you is, what's your goals in the next? And as we just started,
So
there's always like an idea somewhere down the road. Like, what would you like for Rafferty's to grow into? Obviously a bigger community, or kind of tell me like what's your future, ideal for Rafferty's.
so in the immediate future,
Hmm.
because the reason I started this brand was for my kids, and because just watching the options out there with the limited options that we did have didn't make sense to me. So that's why I started this brand. And now my oldest son has just started school. I'm like, he's in a pair of Saguaro right now. So I'm like, and before that he used to be in Vivo. So I'm like, we have to make a school shoes for you. It can't be in other brands. So like that's my next focus. I'm like, we're gonna make school shoes
Hmm.
this year. Then we're gonna launch hopefully in that market this year. And also about the sole, like this sole that you currently see is like a more generic sole, right? It is a barefoot. It is a natural rubber sole, so it's very grippy. It's got like a bit of like a cork flake texture as well, but it's not a custom sole. So that's the other project that I have in mind as well. Like we're going to have a custom sole, and then we're going to have school shoes. That's like the immediate next thing that I'm working on. But in the future, as a brand, as a brand itself, I want to focus heavily on community first approach. And that means that I want to see more like in-person events, more
Hmm.
pop events, more meeting parents and meeting children, and just like talking to people, because that's something that I haven't done only because I don't have the resources or the money to do it right now. But in the future, like I would love for us to be more hands on, more just connecting with the community, whether that's in Australia or overseas or wherever, having a big community. And because more than like scaling through ads or more than scaling through trends or going viral, I believe in the power of people around you. And yeah, so that's what my vision for the brand is.
Yeah, I think that's great. The more I don't know who I was listening to, but the more and more like we're becoming more virtual and online, like the less and less we become more of that human connection and like being able to talk to people face to face. It's becoming less. And so even though like yes, my podcast, I'm doing this virtually. I myself too. Like, I mean, I have maybe a few podcasts I did in person, but it was early in my early days. So, like, I understand having that face to face connection with someone who is like minded, who has share the same values that you might have to be in that. And I think that's important, especially in, community, like people who are thinking about, feet first and their kids. Like, it's rare, but you just have to find that. And I think that's great that you're wanting to create that environment.
Absolutely. Like, don't you find that if you've ever met someone who's like minded or you feel like is a kindred soul, the energy really rubs off and you just feel like, wow, I've had such a fantastic conversation. And it's just driving those conversations that's important. It's not about preaching or telling people that this is right and what you're doing is wrong. You're a bad parent. No, like it's just awareness in driving conversations. And I love that.
And then as far as the barefoot shoe industry evolving, since you've gotten into it, where do you see it evolving in the future?
Ooh, it's a good one because we're actually having a first. I think Australia is having its very first barefoot expo this year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I was like, should I sign up for it? I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so we had full on imposter syndrome, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna sign up for it. Like, it doesn't matter. We're the amateurs, so let's just own it. Let's just be the amateurs. It's all right. So I see with the barefoot industry, or like I honestly want to see that more people are aware, even if they don't adapt or adopt. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to people are aware. They know that this option exists, that you don't have to go with what's traditional or what's normal or what you've always been told is normal. You know, there's always a choice, and you have the option to make a better choice.
So are you going to the expo? Are you becoming a vendor?
Yes, I did make an application. I haven't heard back yet,
Okay.
but I did make an application, and if we get in, I'm gonna be a winner. It's just gonna be me. I have to find someone to help me.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. Keep me updated on that one. That'd be awesome if you could.
And all these brands, so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so new comparatively, but I'm like, don't compare.
You are, I mean, your Rafferty's is just it's the kids' barefoot shoe. So I think if anything, people who are coming, gonna looking into kids' barefoot shoes, they'll probably pop up to you first rather than
Yeah.
bigger brands. So yeah, best of luck
Thank
for yourself. What are some ways that you plan on creating more awareness and exposure to Rafferty's brand?
So obviously the easiest one or the biggest one is social media because, sometimes you feel like you're talking to a dead wall, and most times it's like that. People have very low attention span and they're just scrolling. But the odd times that you are able to connect with someone, it makes a difference in their life. So I feel like that's like a low hanging fruit. It's easy. I try not to get too much into like the analytics and the results and the views of it because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just put it out there, and whatever happens, it's fine. So I'm going to continue to do that, like just educate people through our brand and our social media channel. Um, and the next thing that I do want to do is, like I said, I do want to do pop-ups. I do want to do community events. Like there is, so I reached out to like our local member of parliament where we live. And I said, hey, we're a new brand. How can you support us? I was like, I voted for you. So it's time you return the favor. He was like, "Okay." And he actually got back to me and he introduced me to his events manager, and he said, "We have events coming up this year and we'd be happy to give you a stall for free." I was like, "That's amazing. Yeah, we'll take that. Thank you." So just more things like that, just trying to like because you're so frugal at this point and you have to be a bit more, guerrilla marketing with how you're thinking and just like randomly reach out to whoever's willing to listen to you or help you. So that's
Mm-hmm.
literally going to be reaching out to every year that's willing to listen and be like, have you heard about us? Do you want to know more about kids' foot health? So that's going to be my approach.
Well, I think that's definitely, every beginning of a brand new brand and practice like, like yourself and I, it's just like you're just trying to cast many nets as possible and seeing if it hits and seeing if there's anyone that, sees the value that you're bringing. So yeah, I understand. I totally understand.
Yes.
As far as ways that people can learn about Rafferty shoes and purchasing and learning more about what you're doing there, where can they find you? So if you want to share social, email, website, and of course, ways to really interact and stay in touch with you guys. So where can they find you?
Yes. So easiest way to find us is on Instagram. I'm a millennial, so I'm not yet TikTok versed. I'm still very much on Instagram. I try to be more on TikTok, but our Instagram is just Rafferty Shoes, and you'll find us quite easily there. I'm quite active on Instagram. We have a website. We don't have a store or we don't have like a physical place at the moment. We're completely e-commerce, so you can easily get onto our website. It's www.raffertyshoes.com. I know it's a mouthful, but hopefully people get used to it. And then our email address is hello@raffertyshoes.com. So those are some ways you can easily connect. I do share a lot of behind the scenes of the business and what went wrong and how I'm struggling with my kids. So if you want to be entertained.
Yes, I've seen many of them, and I can relate.
Yes.
Well, Shabnam, I'm so grateful that I could have you on the podcast, talk about your shoes, and of course, learn more about what you're doing there and seeing the growth. So thank you so much for hopping on to the podcast.
It was my pleasure, Ian. Like I said, it's amazing. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome.